Hi everybody, this is TheHande, and here I am doing No Escape again, and let's start the game. Okay, so we recently did an episode of this with Aqualung or Kenny Blakey of Aqualung's Game Reviews, and unfortunately, you might have noticed that the video settings, I put a note in the video as well, that the video settings were slightly off. So what was going on was that as we were recording, the scan lines were not getting, it wasn't video capturing the game very accurately, meaning that these ceiling tiles were alternately just either invisible, or the rocks that Jason is throwing were invisible. And yeah, I felt really bad about that, but the episode itself was still, still pretty good, so that's why, I decided, obviously I decided, well, we went through the trouble of recording the whole thing, like, let's just put out the episode, because, the conversation we had was great. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the thing that I really kind of wanted to talk about, because the reason I really kind of wanted to do it was because I really wanted to have a chance to talk a little bit about, like, Greek mythology with Ken. But I think we got a little bit distracted by everything that was going on, and but this is a fun game. This is a fun game. Like as I told the story. It's not much of a story, but when Ken did the review of this not too long ago, I was very excited about it. So by the way, what's different this time is that this particular emulator has something called a phosphor setting, so it's trying to kind of like, I don't know, it adds like an additional glow to the characters, so they might look a bit different. But yeah, so basically I'll be trying to get to past the harpies that I wasn't able to get past the previous time when I played this. This last skeleton is really a bitch to try to get. Yeah, and I'll try to maybe talk a little bit about Greek mythology as well. So, we kind of got on a weird side tangent. Well, I guess it's typical for me to talk about, like, old, TV shows that I used to watch. Because I don't really watch TV these days anymore. I don't watch shows the same way I used to when I was younger. And I used to watch quite a lot of shows. That was the thing. Like, granted, I did watch mostly, like, shows that were either comedies, like sitcoms, and also, like, shows that had a comedic sense, edge, or supernatural shows. I did watch for a little while, I'm not afraid to admit it, I did watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, quite a bit, but I eventually kind of grew tired of both of them. And one thing is, like, was the just fact that, well, I'm kind of on record stating that I kind of think vampires are kind of stupid and lame. I feel the same way about zombies. I'm not really a big zombie movie fan. The only zombie movies that I have ever really liked are the Resident Evil movies, and even those, like the later installments, I will admit, like I wasn't a big fan of. But vampires in particular, because they're such a weirdly specific monster group that has such weird specific weaknesses that really, if you stop to think about it, they don't really make any sense and would ultimately like make them kind of weak ass monsters, which is funny because then in like all fantasy literature and all fantasy media, vampires are like these like considered like these goats of the mystical world. Like they're somehow these super powerful things, and like and to me, like the vampires are pretty pathetic when you get right down to it. Like I will even admit, like I think actually I find zombies even scarier, even though they are a stupid monster. Like the idea of there being a shambling, thinking thing that's coming to eat me is somehow a lot scarier to me than some pale guy with sharp teeth, jumping at me and wanting to suck my blood. Which, don't get me wrong, like I get why vampires are popular. I'm also kind of getting used to the gameplay again. Recoil. I didn't manage to do that last time. I mean, mostly because I was avoiding going to off center. Yeah. So, and we did have a little discussion about these walking skeletons because obviously this, I really should have thought about it. I didn't really think about it, but obviously this game is, I was kind of just like blown away by this game because I thought that it was just like randomly choosing a Greek myth to base the game around, and of course, after a little while, I realized, oh, it's not random at all, is it? Because this is because this is the skeleton should have been my biggest clue. This is obviously trying to. It's not officially licensed, but it's clearly taking a note from the Harryhausen and Jason and the Argonauts movie, because that one is famous for a scene with skeletons fighting. Which, on that note, yes, I did a little bit of research and did discover that because I wasn't sure, but I don't think that there are like undead creatures in Greek mythology, because the Greeks. Well, it depends a little bit on which part of history you're into, but the ancient Greek idea of death was that when you move on into the underworld, you just basically kind of keep living your life as if when you were alive. In super old Greek mythology, they're said to be like a procession of the dead. So when you die, you basically just walk in this circle endlessly with everyone else who has ever lived. It's kind of actually a much scarier idea, in my opinion. It's kind of like never-ending purgatory. But like the Greeks did not believe in like that, in like that you died, that there was a reward for you for living a good life or living a bad life, or a punishment for living a bad life. The gods would only punish you if you did something to anger them personally. There was a. Like the guys that tried to capture Hades' wife were the two guys who got glued onto to chairs in the underworld and were basically stuck at this dinner table until Hercules saved one of them. I'm trying to remember which of the two guys. Oh my god! Almost. Oh wait, these are the first harpies. These aren't the second harpies. Wait, are they? Wait, the first harpies are the dopey-looking ones. Did I do it? Did I actually do it? I haven't. I was so zoned out. Yes, it's centaur time! Woohoo! Okay. The centaurs are another creature that I used to think was kind of cool, but now in hindsight, I do actually think centaurs are kind of stupid creatures. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I would want a horse body, even though it would come with some advantages, if you know what I mean. They were way easier than the harpies. Okay, maybe because these are they're not dodging. They're just going back and forth. So those harpies on the level 4, they're actually much harder than these centaurs. Also, something that always cracks me up about centaurs is the fact that in the first Zelda, and maybe also in maybe also in one of the later, the Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdoms, like one of the ones that I haven't played that much. I believe there is literally just a straight up centaur. They're called Lionels, but they are just literally centaurs. So I do think it's kind of funny that was like, because Zelda didn't really. Zelda, never really like took a lot of inspiration from Greek mythology. And Greek mythology, it's kind of weird. It's certain Greek monsters will just on the regular get featured. Like something like the Hydra or the Cyclops, and quite often even Medusa. But it's kind of weird how, like, of all the European mythologies. Greek is such a specific one, because then when you get into the medieval period mythologies, like maybe it's just because they're a little bit more genericized, at least to some extent. Like, don't get me wrong, like I did that whole video on the mythological origins of the creatures from Heroes of Might and Magic. And granted, like Heroes is already such a late title that there's a lot of like fantasy conventions that it's like, oh god damn it, that it's clearly like adhering to, like you know, like orcs. Like orcs as we kind of know them are a very modern creation, and what might have been an orc in the Middle Ages was, you know, probably, you know, a little bit less, you know, obvious. But a troll is like a good example of that. So, because the Scandinavians have a lot of, not Finns, I'm Finnish, but I should probably stress that trolls are not really really a Finnish thing. But it's like, also like in the Scandinavian myths, like troll can basically mean quite a lot of different things. There's not just like one archetype of a troll that exists. Like there is now these days like a codified what we understand for a troll to be. But it's especially evident in when I now a couple of years ago when I went to Iceland with some students and we got a tour of some locations, and the Icelanders have a lot of stories about trolls. Like they say like every fucking, you know, rock that looks slightly weird, like, oh, that was a troll that turned into stone. But then like, you know, when you look at the mythologies more broadly, you get the impression like, you know, literally anything is a troll. It doesn't have to be like this monstrous creature in the woods, because, you know, there are no forests in Iceland. You know, but like literally like something that is clearly like maybe a witch or a ghost also gets called a troll in like Icelandic mythology. So, you know, it's just to say like, and that's also kind of like the big lie, if you will, about Greek mythology, because it's not really like a well organized. We kind of you know modern audiences kind of like treat Greek mythology like it was this codified thing, that there's these monsters and they have their rules and they have said like origins. And no, most of the time Greek myths had a lot of variation, and the variation was usually based on like what region you were from, because the myths, you know, they weren't just cool stories. Like, you know, some of the myths were, you know, told to explain natural phenomena that we didn't understand what was causing by them, so we came up with like these magical creatures to explain them. Which is a bit weird when you stop to consider, like, Aristotle, you know, was also, well, Aristotle was a little bit later, but, you know, Aristotle was one of the first people to actually, like, question those things and, like, you know, to, you know, say that, you know, rather than some supernatural thing, that there was, like, a natural order of things that caused things to happen. He, of course, got a lot of that stuff wrong, but, you know, he was one of the first to actually, like, you know, think like, you know what, maybe there isn't like a magical goblin that makes it rain, or, you know, like a thunder god. Like maybe there actually is like a rhyme and a reason for why after a long period of sunrise. You know, he didn't understand the, you know, hydromechanics, but, you know, he was at least smart enough to like say that, you know, maybe this isn't just like some magical, you know, maybe it's not like a magical guy who comes up with this stuff, or who causes thunder to fall. So that's the thing, like, that makes it a bit frustrating sometimes to even research, because when then in modern media you see these stories about interpretations of Greek myths, and people really often want to like shit on those. Personally, I think it's neat whenever somebody decides to pick the Greek mythos to base any kind of like fantasy stuff on, because I think it's honestly kind of fallen out of fashion a bit. So whenever like, you know, apart from like very, very specific moments in time, like I said, like we were talking about in that episode with Aqualung, like the late 90s had this weirdly, you know, period where Greek mythology was suddenly like the hot shit. You know, I've never read them, but I've heard that people shit on those like Percy Jackson books a lot, and like other things, like, you know, but like, you know, but it gets to the idea that there are no lore rules in actual mythology. Like it is like literally depending on where you lived and who you praised and who you thought was important. Like, you know, I'm sure that there were a lot of ancient Greek people that, you know, they feared the wrath of Zeus, if you will. But like Zeus is a pretty shitty god if you stop to really think about him. Like he's constantly cheating on his wife. He's having bastard children left, right, and center. And not even consensually, like fucking, like so many of Zeus's kids are born from just straight up rape. So you know, he might be the king of all the gods, but he's a pretty, and I love it because the one time I think that they showed Zeus in that, you know, the Kevin Sorbo, you know, Hercules show, which by the way, of course, is also incorrect because Hercules is the Roman name, not the Greek name, but whatever. Like, they show him at, like, as this nice old man. He's like, you know, hi there, Herc, and he's all like, hey, Dad! And, like, you know, yeah, and it's like, you know, that's another thing. The Hercules myth is another one, because, you know, like, if you were to ask, again, possibly based on the Kevin Sorbo show, like, why did Hercules have to do his 12 tasks? Because that's, like, the core of, like, the Hercules myth. Is like, he has these impossible trials that he's being put up against, and then he just succeeds in all of them. Well, there's different versions of the myth. The most popular one that I think gets repeated over time, I don't remember which, it's a later or an earlier myth, is that because, you know, Hercules is another bastard son of Zeus, obviously. So, you know, the story goes that Heracles is inflicted with either a temporary madness or he just gets super fucking drunk and murders his own family. So Hercules is like, or Heracles is like, he's happily married, he has like kids, and then one day, without any reason, murders his entire family, and because he brings dishonor to Zeus by doing that. You know, Zeus is the guy who originally tasks him. In the TV show, they made it a bit more obvious that Hera was like the villainess of that show. That she's the one who had a, you know, a chip on her shoulder against Hercules. I don't remember if we ever actually. We must have. If we saw her, she must have like appeared much later. The thing that I always kind of find cute about the Hercules myth is honestly something that doesn't get talked about a lot. Is that so that's one other thing is like Heracles. You know, the name, and I think this is somehow like tied, like the like one of Heracles' like siblings who has his back always is Athena, the hunter goddess. So it says like, you know, Athena's like always looking out for her bro in those stories, which is really cute, and I kind of wished they would have leaned into that a little bit more in like some of the other Hercules stories. Because I think it was her who comes up with the name Heracles, because she doesn't want, you know, when Heracles is still a baby, she doesn't want Hera to just kill the baby. So they give him that kind of name to protect him from Hera's wrath. But to be fair, like, Heracles is also like, you know, not the most honorable hero also. Like, he has like at least, well, first of all, you know, Iolaus, who was like the sidekick in the show, like, he's actually like his gay lover, but and like he has at least 3 female consorts. I remember there's this one like straight to video animated Heracles thing. It ends with Heracles actually going to Hades to get his family back, which is not myth accurate at all. But it was a kid's movie, so they couldn't show the actual fate, because you know, Hercules' actual like ending, final fate is pretty horrible. But like, you know, Megara was not Heracles' only honey. You know, there's his wife that he murdered. Then there's this princess who is the reason why Megara accidentally causes, or was it Megara? It's either Megara or the princess, the other princess that Heracles saves and takes on as a wife. And, yeah, this really is the bottleneck of this. I actually just recently got myself a copy, an actual physical copy of the Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. I have an old video where I was playing it with a commentary in Finnish, but with English subtitles. And I was just reminded of how that second graveyard, or it's called the woods, but it's the graveyard. The second graveyard level boss fight is like the goddamn bottleneck of that game. Like the boss fight in that, it legit is the hardest boss fight in the whole fucking game. Okay, this is gonna be my last run. We already have a decently long episode, but I might as well just do one more. Ah, shit. Might as well just do one more. Yeah, so I kind of feel bad, you know, that we did have that video capture faux pas, because it also showed up a little bit in Frogger, but in Frogger, and also, you know, in Adventure, but yeah, the Adventure episode, by the way, that was my favorite of the ones we did. That one was really, really good. I recommend checking that out. But, you know, I always assume when it's these, you know, emulators that the, you know, scan line flickering, that it wouldn't be an issue, and it then clearly was an issue. Yeah, I feel really bad about that. Because I never know like how OBS is gonna like treat that kind of stuff. Come on. Eek. Come on, you bastards. Oh, yeah, I hit myself. Okay, I guess we won't be getting to the next level then, or getting through the harpies, because I'm already like well like out of health. But you know, so I've been saying like, you know, how much I like Greek mythology and whatever. So, and there are no undead creatures in, like, ancient Greek myth. Later Greek myth actually did believe, later Greeks, like, from the medieval period onward, like, there started to be this belief in vampires. So vampire myths were a thing in the Greeks, but that was more pushed by the church at the time. So, because, you know, they always believed that, you know, people turned into vampires if they got buried in, like, you know, sanctioned or, you know, unsanctified graves or whatever. But yeah, that was much later development. But yeah, so one thing that I do have to say about Greek mythology that I do think is kind of stupid, a lot of creatures are just like, let's take two animals and put them together, like something like the cockatrice or something like that is like, yeah, no, that's stupid. And I also recently found out basilisk is like that as well. I seriously thought that basilisk, well, I blame Harry Potter for this, but I seriously thought basilisk was just like a giant evil snake. And no, it's like a cock with a snake for a tail or something. But anyway, that was No Escape. I hope you enjoyed watching me play this again. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.